What's up, guys? In this video, we're going to take a look at how you can transform your text game from beginner to advanced. And specifically, we're going to take a look at a Playing with Fire mastermind member and analyze what his texting was like when he first joined the mastermind and was having a hard time getting girls to even message him back, to what it was a few months in after he started, getting dates, seeing some consistent results, and basically explain exactly what he did to level up his text game so that you guys can mimic his success. So let's take a look at an example of his texting when he first joined the mastermind and was a beginner still. He opens a girl on Tinder with, "Hey," insert her name. She says, "Hey there," smiley face. He says, "How's your Friday?" "Busy, haha. How's yours?" Question mark. "Great. Assignments piling up, I'm guessing." "Nah, just work, you know." He says, "Should take a breather," winky face. She says, "What's that?" And he interprets her question literally, not picking up on the sarcasm, and says, "A break." "I wish. I need me one." "I hear coffee with a handsome Australian guy works wonders." "I'm guessing you'll be the Australian guy, yes?" "Smart girl." "Where are you in pa?" And then he gives his, whatever exact location, and then says, "We're practically neighbors." She says, "Damn, we're close." "Lol, yep, free tomorrow, question mark." "I'll be working actually." "When do you finish?" "Late." Solution? "How long are you here for?" "I'm in pa till Wednesday." "Ah, okay." "Will be short but intense romance," winky face. As a side note, that's probably the best text that he wrote in this whole interaction. And she says, "Well, I'm up for that, but time is being a bitch, haha. Just come for a drink tomorrow night, then go home early," with a weird emoji. And she says, "We'll see." And that's where the whole thing ends off. Now, on the surface, this doesn't seem terrible. He didn't make any glaring mistakes during this whole interaction, which doesn't make it, the text game is not pure dog shit. But it's still very much beginner for several reasons. First of all, it's just boring. The whole interaction is boring. There's no emotional engagement. There's nothing exciting about it. There's nothing that draws the girl in. It's just very plain, very matter-of-factly, like how you'd be talking to your grandma. Like, for example, he says, "Great, assignments piling up, I'm guessing." Like talking about homework, it's just not an exciting topic. A much better thing to say would have been like, "Ah, haha, the strip club is keeping you busy," or something like that. Again, like you want to take the conversation to a more interesting level. You don't want it to be boring, talking about schoolwork. That's just not exciting. Another big issue was the lack of investment. At no point in this whole interaction does he get the girl to really start investing. She really never writes more than a sentence. And that goes back to the first point, is that the interaction is boring. A girl is going to be much less likely to invest in a boring interaction than one that really draws her in and has her engaged. That's when she just forgets about what she's doing at the moment, just starts writing paragraphs. So really the conversation has to catch her attention for her to invest. But there's also a question that you can ask to solicit her investment. Like you can ask, even what are you looking for on here? What is your biggest turn on? If the conversation goes sexual, anything that will just really get her to start invest and writing more than one sentence. And after that, only are you likely to get an actual meetup instead of having the girl come up with a lame excuse. Another big issue is that I very commonly see with beginners is it's all push and there's no pull. It's always just like, let's hang out when he starts going for the meetup. Like, "Oh, tomorrow night, are you free?" Like, Like he's always the one pushing. At no point is he really taking a step back. The only thing that could be considered a pull is when he says, solution, question mark. That is kind of a pull. That's when he's trying to get her to come up with a solution. But the rest of it is just him pushing and pushing and pushing. Good text game should be more of like a waltz where you push a little bit, then you pull back. Then she pushes, because you give her some space, then she pulls back. It's more like a waltz, not just you pushing and pushing and pushing the whole time. And the last but not least is just poor closing. An optimal way to close, I talk about in a lot of other videos, is to first start off with a soft close. "Oh, awesome. We should get together sometime soon." Then once she agrees to the general idea of meeting up with you, then you go into specifics, like what's your schedule like? You try to gauge exactly what her availability is, and then you lock down a day and time. Unfortunately, the guy skips that, and it's a small step, but it's actually a really important one. He skips that and just says, "Oh, let's hang out tomorrow night." Like he's just taking a stab at it. Like first, she hasn't agreed to the general idea of meeting up with him yet, and second of all, he has no idea of knowing whether she's actually free tomorrow night. She might really want to hang out with him, but she's actually not free that night. So it's much better to be a little bit more strategic about it and get a feel for her schedule, or at the very least give her options. You free tomorrow or Wednesday night, instead of just throwing out a night on there and kind of like throwing darts at a dartboard. Now, let's take a look at the same exact guy and analyze what his texting was like a few months after he joined the mastermind and had leveled up his text game to advanced. He opens a girl on Tinder with, "Swipe right for that booty gains," which is a pretty witty opener. And she writes back, "Swipe right for your entire upper body. Please tell me you come with a booty too." He says, "Depends, ... And again, that's a little bit more of a pull. So he's not like pushing. Now he's learned his lesson and he's pushing a little bit and now pulling back. She says, "Your booty depends, ? With 2 crying emojis. And then he says, "On if you can take your eyes off my abs." So again, he's not thinking one move ahead, he's thinking several moves ahead. So he sets himself up with a text and then he kind of knows how she's going to respond, and then he follows it up with a text that is built on the previous text. And that's more like thinking of text game like chess, where you're thinking a few moves ahead, a few texts ahead. And she says, "If I can't resist your abs, then I'll just have to reach around and grab your butt," with 2 tongue out emojis. And he says, "How are you going to do that when your hands are cuffed? ? So again, also pretty witty text. He's not going too sexual too fast. He's kind of like smoothly getting into it. But he's getting into it. So it's emotionally engaging, because talking about handcuffs and being tied up and BDSM is a lot more exciting than talking about homework. And she says, "Oh, the question is whether you'll be able to hold me down before I grab you." He responds with, "I like a little fight, but I am positive I can. If all else fails, I'll just grip your face by your hair and choke you so you submit." Obviously, he means that in like a sexual way, not in like a creepy way. So she says, "Oh, now that's going to be difficult. I'm into that, so I probably won't resist." And for some of you guys, this might be a little bit of a shocker, like, "Oh, wow, like this girl is getting so into it. I thought you weren't supposed to text." Sexting is totally fine as long as you can do it in a smooth, calibrated way, which he's doing. So he says, "I know you are. A little more fight, and then I bend you over my lap with a cloth wrapped around your mouth with my strong arms spanking you as you squirm," which is a pretty good visual message. And she says, "Unfair, you get to spank my bum and I can't even touch your sad face." He says, "You can, only if you can handle all that." So again, another little bit of a challenging text. Like it's a little bit of a pull text. He's kind of like, he leads a little bit and then he takes a step back and creates space for her to fill in and invest into. And she says, "All that ? Are you going to do more naughty things to my little body?" So clearly she loves this. And he says, "A lot more than that on a romantic date." She says, "I'm intrigued. We'll have to set a date then ? And notice how she's actually, emoji con. And notice how she's actually invested so much that she's soft closing him. So he doesn't have to be the one that's constantly pushing and trying to get her to meet up, because he had gotten her to invest. The conversation had been so exciting that she's actually soft closing him. And he says, "Exactly. Shoot me your number for romance arrangement purposes." And she gives him her number. He texts her, "Hey, it's his name from the thing." And she says, "Hey, thanks for texting me. How are you today?" He says, "Fucking amazing, chilling on my romantic balcony. And you ? And she says, "You're very romantic, aren't you? Just got out of bed now. I'm making breakfast. Want some ? Now some of you guys might be thinking like, "Oh, this was exciting earlier, but it's getting boring now." I wouldn't say so. The conversation, he had built a lot of emotional, spike, let's just say, with the whole sex thing and talking about handcuffs. But if he just keeps doing that and just keeps sexting nonstop, then that's going to actually backfire and create a reverse effect, because the girl still needs to see that he's a normal guy who can talk about something other than sex. So that's where kind of what he's doing now. He created a big emotional, let's just say, trigger, and now he's pulling a little bit back and kind of building a tad bit of comfort. And he says, "Yes, after eggs and bacon, what will I get though?" So he's talking about random shit, but he's also keeping it exciting and saying like, "Oh, what will I get?" He doesn't just say like, "Yes, after eggs and bacon, what is your favorite breakfast?" That would be a little bit more boring. He says, "What will I get though?" So kind of talking about random everyday shit, but keeping it exciting still. And she says, "Okay, making some for you. I'd offer dessert, but isn't it too early for dessert ? And then he says, "You don't know my diet schedule," with a winky face. She says, "Do the abs come from having dessert every morning after breakfast?" And he says, "It's a step back, but if the dessert is worth it, I wouldn't care." So yeah, talking about random shit, but keeping it exciting and engaging. She says, "Oh, you'd have to have a taste to know, but I'm 100% certain you'd love it." Then he says, "Well, I'll be sure to give you my professional opinion." And she says, "We'll have to set up a dessert tasting session." So notice how she's second closing him a second time now. So she's really into it, and now she really wants to meet up. And he's smart enough to pick up on this now, and he At this point, he can skip the soft close because she's soft closing him, and he goes for the exact logistics, but he does it in a smart way and says free tonight or Sunday. So he gives her an option, which is always better than just randomly picking a date. It's always better to give a girl 2 or 3 options that she can pick from. And she says, I'm actually free tonight after the gym, XX. And he's also really smart for picking up on the fact that because she's investing so much, she might be very DTF tonight, and it's better to strike when the iron is hot. So one of the options is actually that night. He says, how's 9 p.m. sound? She says, where? And he sends his address. And she says, at your place already, with a crying emoji. And then she says, can we meet like in public? Because I need to know you're on a fat, stinky, old man ex-murderer. Which, as we all know, is the worst kind of ex-murderer, the fat, stinky, old man kind. And he says, how do I know you're not a 300-pound black guy? And she says, that's why we meet in public, so you can run away if I am. And he says, all right, sounds good. And then he suggests a cafe that's nearby. And then the rest is just basically coordinating logistics. They meet up for a little bit, and he pulls her back to his place, and they do naughty things. Now, let's quickly analyze how he fixed the 4 big text game mistakes he was making in the first interaction. So a big one was boring conversation. It was just very talking about schoolwork. There's nothing exciting about it, nothing that draws the girl in. In this one, through calibrated progressive sexualization, he really kept it exciting. You could tell because the girl was just really into it. She was showing a lot of interest. It was like a fun, tension-filled interaction combined with banter and humor, which is a really great balance because pure banter, can be interesting, but it doesn't draw the girl in as much as if you combine it with sexualization. It doesn't screen her as much, but pure sexualization can also be too much for some girls, and they might think oh, this guy's like a weirdo, he can only talk about sex. But if you balance those two out, sexualization, smart sexualization with banter and humor, you get the ultimate combination of, keeping the girl intrigued, making her want to meet you. Another big issue he had in the first interaction was a lack of investment. The girl was just giving him one-word answers and being very stingy with her words. This is not the case here. She's very clearly invested here, because he creates some space for her, and he goes in, he pushes a little bit, and then he pulls back, creates space, and the girl starts investing more and more. And because she's investing so much, she's even the one that soft closes him. Because when you get a girl invested, she wants to see that investment amount to something. It's much easier for the girl to decide not to meet you if she hadn't invested anything. If she had already invested a lot, she feels like she wants to get her almost like money's worth. So that's why she's going to be the one then to try to meet up with you. Investment is really, really key for minimizing flaking, getting the girl to meet up with you that night, or just getting the girl to meet up in general. And of course, another big issue he had was that the conversation was all push, no pull. So it was just him constantly hey, when do we hang out? When do we hang out? Hey, what do you like? This one was completely different. It was just a nice balance. He would lead a little bit, then he would pull back. It almost feels like the girl is the one trying to get him, which is really what good text games should look like. It should almost look like the girl is the one trying to get you. Whereas in the first one, it looked like he was the one chasing her. Here it was just a much more balanced dynamic. And this is just text mark of good a text game in general. And the last issue he had initially was poor closing. He just randomly said, hey, you want to hang out tomorrow night? And then she said, oh, I'm actually busy. And then he just started throwing out random times and trying to make it work. In this one, it's a lot more calibrated. She waits until, she's actually the one that soft closes him. Then he gives her several options. And then, which is much better approach. She picks from one of those options, and then he's able to get a meetup. And it's much easier to just get it right the first time, to just basically, do it smartly. The first time you throw out plans, she agrees to them. Then if you throw out a night, she can't do it. Then you throw out another night, she can't do it. And then you get into negative compliance. And then you're trying to make things work when they're already going downhill versus just getting it right the first time, which is what he does here. And aside from even all those 4 things, the vibe in this interaction is just a lot better. The vibe in the first interaction is man, there's nothing majorly wrong with it. The girl reading this doesn't think he's a creep. She doesn't think he's a weirdo. But there's also nothing in that whole interaction that makes her really want to meet him. It's just very plain. And if she's already sitting at home comfortable, it's much easier for her to just keep doing what she's doing. She doesn't have a strong motivation to go up, get dressed, take a shower, make herself pretty, whatever, text 20 of her girlfriends, and then ultimately meet up with the guy. So there's really just no strong motivation. It's just very meh. Versus in this one, just going through this, you feel like, damn, this guy's smooth, very smooth, oh shit, he's really getting the girl engaged, wow, this is really, really good shit. And whatever you feel reading this as a guy, a girl feels times 10. So if you think that, this is kind of boring, the girl feels that a lot more. If you think, wow, this is fucking dope, this is really smooth, the girl also feels that more because women are much more socially in tune. As I'm sure you can see, there really is a night and day difference between the level of text game in the first interaction, which ended in the girl saying, "We'll see," to the level of text game in the second interaction, which ended in him getting the date and ultimately banging the girl. This guy was really able to transform his text game to the next level, just fix all the beginner mistakes that he was making and ultimately get a lot more results. And hopefully as a result of this video and using this guy as an example, you guys are able to also improve your own text game. Let me know that you guys enjoyed this video by hitting the like button, smashing the subscribe button, hitting the bell for notifications. If you have any questions about anything, write it in the comments below. And if you haven't already, make sure you go to forums.playingfire.com and join the PWF community. Thank you for watching. Until next time.